Hi, everyone.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Herptile feeding session this morning. I'm going to start off by giving our bicolored dart frogs some flies to munch on, and then Peter will walk you through the best way to use Zoom for this activity. This is one of the frogs that we're about to feed, and right here I have their prey for this morning. These are some fruit flies. We culture these here at the Science Center, and that means that our dart frogs aren't actually poisonous. In the wild, dart frogs get their toxins from their diet. And so here at the Science Center, because our fruit flies don't eat the toxic rainforest plants, the bicolored dart frogs don't get their toxins either. All right, so I just dumped a bunch of flies in there. I'm gonna leave you guys looking at the frogs while Peter tells you a little bit about Zoom. Hopefully we can get you a nice view of some frogs eating there.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. I'm Peter. I'm going to go over a couple of Zoom tips for you. Again, I think I've seen most of you on these before, but just in case you've forgotten or you're new, I'll go over a couple of general rules for how to use Zoom. The first thing to note is we're going to be recording this Zoom session. That way we can post it on Facebook for people who weren't able to make it. We're just going to be recording video of Emily's screen, so in this case, all those little frogs, but we will be recording any audio. So if you ask a question, then we'll probably hear you. So just keep that in mind. It's really useful if you want to have your video on, that way we can see you, and if you're raising your hand or showing us something, we're able to see what you're showing us. To do that, you can turn your video on and off. At the bottom of your screen, there's a little video camera. So you can click that to turn your video on, or if you're feeling shy, you can always leave it off or turn it off later. Right next to that is a little microphone symbol that says mute or unmute. It's really useful if folks keep their microphones muted when they're not asking a question. That way we don't hear your parents or your family or your dogs in the background making a bunch of noise, and we can all really hear any questions or what Emily has to share. Right now, everyone is muted, but I'm going to have us all practice unmuting ourselves. We're going to say, good morning, science friends, and then we will mute ourselves again. So I'm going to count down from 3, and then we'll unmute. So 3, 2, 1, unmute.
Good morning,
Good morning, science friends.
Good morning.
Awesome. So go ahead and mute yourself again.
Good morning.
Good work.
Rosie.
Everyone, go ahead and mute yourself. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So if you have a question at any point, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself so I can hear you. You could also raise your hand if you're on the video and I'll see you. Or you can even raise your hand digitally. I can see Kavan's doing that right now, which is really helpful. So to do that, if you go to the bottom of your screen again, you can see where it says participants. And if you click on that, you'll see a list of everybody and you'll see a bunch of different options. One of those is a blue hand. And if you click on that, I'll know that you have something you want to say or a question you want to ask. You could also, another good way to ask questions, which some folks are already using, which is great. If you go back to that bottom of your screen, there's a little speech bubble that says chat, and you can write a message to everybody there, and we will see it. So I'm saying good morning to everybody. So you're welcome to do that as well if you're not feeling like you want to talk on camera. I think, Emily, are you back now? Can we have you pin your screen?
Yep, I am back.
Perfect.
So you'll see a frog on my screen, a little dart frog that's hunting some fruit flies. You can go ahead and click the 3 dots in the top corner of that square, and then select pin video so that you'll get a good view of what's going on here at the Science Center this morning.
Nice. The very last thing, which I forgot to mention, if you want to rename yourself the name of the kid who is using the Zoom today, you can go ahead and click the 3 dots on your screen and give it your name. That way we don't call you by your mom or dad's name or by your grown-up's name or by just something like iPhone. It makes it a little easier for us to call on people who have questions. All right, I think that's it from me, so I'm going to hand it back to Emily and the frogs.
Perfect, thanks, Peter. So while our frogs finish up their daily meal, I'm going to move us over to our Spanish newts tank. I apologize, you're gonna see my reflection in the glass sometimes, but I will try to get you guys the best view possible of these animals. This is a Spanish ribbed newt. You can see right along the side here, there are a number of dots, and those are actually ridges. And the newt, as a defense mechanism, can stick its ribs out of that so that it's a nice, sharp, pointy bit to help defend from predators. These newts, we've got 2, a male and a female, and this morning they're going to be eating crickets. Most of our herptiles this morning will be enjoying crickets. So here are some of our crickets from the back room at the Science Center. They are live. I will be feeding them live because most of these animals will only eat live prey. So I'm grabbing a cricket now. Gonna put you guys in the tank and see if we can tempt a newt. There it goes. So that was a pretty quick response from our male Spanish ribbed newt. We'll get our female one as well to crunch on. These crickets have been fed carrots so that they have a little bit of extra nutrition for our reptiles and amphibians here. Come on. Oops, that's not a newt. There we go. Oops. So she has actually ripped her cricket in half, but she ate part of it, which is great. And she's coming up for more. I apologize for the camera work. It's tricky to hold the camera and do the tongue feeding. All right, those are our Spanish ribbed newts. They get fed about twice a week. I'll probably give them some time to digest that first cricket and then come on back for another one later when
Ethan,
we're done filming.
Ethan, do you have a question? I saw a hand up.
What do we do today?
We're going to be doing some feeding of these animals today. I think, was that your question?
Thanks.
Great, you're welcome.
All right, so next up is our Africanclawed frog tank. This one that you're looking at right now is our albino clawed frog. And you can see it's in this splayed out pose. It's just started moving. One of the most common questions we get here at the Science Center is about this frog. And people often ask, is it dead? As you can see, it's not dead, it's moving around. But African clawed frogs, just like the Spanish newts we just fed, are what's called ambush predators. Ambush predators wait very still in the water for their prey to swim by. And then they grab onto it with their hands and shove it into their mouth. So let's see if we can get that feeding response from our African clawed frog. There's one that's not albino. It has produced the normal pigment, and it grabs it and shoves it into its mouth. I'm gonna feed another one in case you missed that. If I can get a cricket of the right size. Let's see if we can get this albino to eat. Oop, this one's gonna get it first. That's fine. Sorry. All right, so the last one we need to feed is that albino. Albinos often have lower vision, so sometimes I find it a little bit tricky to get this one to eat. Takes more time for it to find the prey, but now it's got that cricket in its mouth and it's shoving it down with those little hands. So albinos are animals that don't produce the normal color pattern pigment for their species. At the Science Center, we have several albinos. We have our albino Africanclawed frog, and we have 2 albino axolotl. So you can see that white coloring with the very red gills. It's much more common to find albino animals in human care because out in the wild, they're very visible to predators. And because they tend to have poorer eyesight, they might not be as good at hunting.
Matthias, do you have a question? I see your hand is up. You'll need to unmute yourself. Great.
Yeah, I was trying to do that. So what are the usual color for those animals that we're seeing?
Yeah, so you can see in both of these species, we have sort of a more typical coloration. So right here, there is a brown axolotl that you can see, and you can imagine it would blend pretty well onto the lake bottom where these guys typically live. And I'll bring you back to the clawed frogs to make sure you get a glimpse of these brownish colored ones. Again, they look a lot like pebbles. They're doing that ambush predator pose, waiting for something to swim by. So these guys are much more cryptic. They blend in a lot better with their surroundings than our bright white albino.
Yeah, those brown ones kind of look like bigger frogs that I have in my pond. We have these peepers, and they look like.
Oh, really? That's awesome. These guys are actually, from their name, you can tell they do come from the African continent, but they have become established in the United States along the East Coast. So in the Southeast, you will find African-clawed frogs. Unfortunately, they're an invasive species, meaning they've sort of taken over the native populations in California, Delaware, and Virginia. And we'll
Rozzy,
talk
do
a
you have
little
a
bit.
hand up? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What do they eat?
Yeah, great question. So today we're feeding them crickets. In the wild, they would also eat insects and any small things that fell into the waterways in which they live. Sometimes we feed these guys worms or mealworms here at the Science Center as well. All right, I'm gonna move us along to our fire-bellied toad. Here's the sign about it. We have one fire-bellied toad in this tank. It's hanging out right here. Now, looking at it from here, you don't really see a reason that it's called a fire-bellied toad. But if we can catch a glimpse of its belly while I feed, I think you'll understand its name a little bit better. So I'm gonna pull the camera up. Gonna rest you guys there for a second while I grab a cricket. This guy's gonna get a little bit of a smaller one. I need to fish one of those out of my bucket. All right. So I need to open the lid of the cage. Excuse the camera work for a moment here. All right, and here we go. Offer this one a cricket. There it goes. Did you see that flash of orange? I'll bring you down. We can look through the water because right now, pressed up against the glass, this toad is displaying its beautiful fire belly. Oops, and it looks like it missed the cricket. So we'll have to go back in there and help it out. A lot of these animals are very used to being tongue fed here at the Science Center. So they're not so good at hunting for themselves. Although probably if I left the cricket in here, our frog would be able to catch it, our toad. But I want to make sure I know that it's eaten and is doing okay. All right, it took that one. So we can move on to my favorite frogs here at the Science Center. Right in this tank here. These are our white tree frogs. Do you guys see frogs yet? Probably not, because they like to hang out over around behind here. I'll get you a better view, not through the glass, in a moment. White tree frogs are sometimes called dumpy tree frogs because of the way their bodies collect fat. I think they look like the chocolate frogs from Harry Potter.
What kind of frog makes a peeping noise?
So there are frogs around here called peepers that you might be hearing now that it's springtime. I know on a lot of my hikes I've been hearing the peepers. You might hear bullfrogs. This is an exciting time for animal investigations because it is spring and it's mating season. And a lot of our animal neighbors are making a lot of noise and trying to connect with one another so that they can have some babies.
Did you have a question too, Arlo? I saw you unmuted your mic.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Razi, I saw you had your hand up as well. Do you have a question?
Frog poo. I want to know, do frogs drink anything?
Sorry? What was the question?
Do frogs drink anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so frogs like to hang out in water. You can see here we've got a big water dish. There's some dirt in it because one of the frogs, as soon as I changed that water, hopped right in for a bath. So a lot of frogs are able to absorb water through their skin so that when they hang out in the water, they get some hydration. That's true for many of our reptiles here as well. Reptiles will also drink water, but if they sit in a bath, they're also absorbing some. All right, so those were our white tree frogs from Australia. They tend to hang out near human houses and things. You can see drain pipes. They are tree frogs. We have tree frogs around in the United States. There's lots of different species of tree frog. All right. So we're going to move over now into our New York natives room. If you've been to the Science Center, you might recognize this walkway. And here we will visit with our spotted salamanders. We have 3 spotted salamanders. Can anyone spot a spotted salamander here? Did you see what I did there? I said spot a spotted salamander. All right, I'm gonna zoom in under that log, you'll see some yellow spots. That is one of our 3 salamanders. And right over here, we've got one that's poking its head out from under the log. So you can see these are fairly big salamanders. They do live around here, but it's very rare to see them. For the most part, they hang out under logs and buried in leaves. But when it comes time for them to spawn, they tend to travel in mass to local ponds and waterways. So there's actually a number of people in Ithaca who help the salamanders cross the street safely at that time. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties with the lid of this cage, so give me one moment. Okay, we're back. I need to grab another cricket, and here we go. Can you guys see the salamander? Let's see, right there's the head. We're gonna try to entice it out from under the log a little bit, and it grabs on pretty quickly. We got a new one of these guys recently, and it took a while for it to get used to tongue feeding, but now it grabs on pretty enthusiastically to these crickets.
Arlo, do you have a question?
Yes. What color are their bellies?
Oh, that's a good question, Arlo. They are pretty much brown, like the top there. So unlike the Firebellied Toad, they don't have any special coloration on their bellies. Right, we've got one last one to feed. There's its head right there.
Kason and Camden, do you have a question too? I think you have to unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Okay, there you go.
What do they eat?
So again, these folks are getting crickets, worms. In the wild, they might eat snails or spiders, other insects. And since they're pretty large, they might occasionally take a chomp at a smaller salamander. So they could eat those out in the wild. All right. We are moving along to our stream exhibit. So in here we've got 2 turtles. We've got a painted turtle that's currently sunning itself on the log. And we have our musk turtle, related to snappers, but much smaller. We've also got 2 frogs. So I can see the green frog on the far bank right there. Not seeing our bullfrog right now, which means she's probably hiding in one of our rocky crevices. So we'll see if she comes out. Yep, I see her under this ledge right here. So she'll come out hopefully when we throw some crickets in there. Just need to find the right key. Sorry. There we go. All right. So if you've been watching the Science Center's live stream on YouTube, you might have gotten to enjoy some views of these frogs over the last couple of days. All right, so we've thrown in some crickets. Our turtle has entered the water to grab some. See if I can get the musk turtle some as well. Right here. There it goes. So these are all some of our larger reptiles and amphibians. And so occasionally we will throw in some mice for them, some baby mice, little pinkies, and they'll eat those happily as well. But today we're just going to do the crickets. You can see the bullfrog has partially come out, but is still hanging out under her rock. Incidentally, this bullfrog is the animal in our collection that has bitten me most often. Being bitten by a frog is a really weird sensation. They're very gooey. All right. So those are our display exhibits to feed. I'm gonna bring you guys to the back room now where we have some of our teaching animals, and we're gonna give them some crickets as well. So if you've ever been to the Science Center, you might know some of these animals or have met them out on our floor.
Rosie, do you have a question?
What do bullfrogs go in dirt?
Do bullfrogs go in dirt? So they might hide in the stream bank and things. They like to be a little bit out of sight, but they definitely want to hang out near waterways. All right, this is our bearded dragon, Norbert. Norbert loves his crickets. He's a pretty awesome hunter. You might have met him at the Science Center. Bearded dragons are also fairly popular pets. In addition to crickets and mealworms, Norbert eats salad here. So he enjoys some greens and some carrots upon occasion.
Deanna, hi, do you have a question?
Okay.
What does the teeth look like?
The bearded dragon's teeth.
Uh-huh.
So it's
Yes.
got some hard ridged jaw bones. It doesn't exactly have teeth the way that we have teeth.
Oh.
Yeah. But that's a good question. I've actually never taken a super good look inside of Norbert's mouth, so I don't know exactly what they look like. But it's a little bit different. All right, we'll give Norbert just a couple more. And then while he hunts those, that's his salad bowl. It doesn't have any salad right now. Get him some of that later. I'm gonna close this tank up so Norbert can stay nice and safe. And I'm going to bring you guys up. Actually, I'm gonna have you watch Norbert for a sec because I need to get a stool. Sorry, but you can watch him hunt. Be right back.
Has anyone here met Norbert before when you came to the Science Center?
All right, there we go.
A couple of you maybe? He's a really cool animal.
All right, so we're going up here now to another of our favorite teaching animals. If you watched the segment on geckos last week, I think you met these guys. These are our fat-tailed geckos, our African fat-tailed geckos. So they're also going to get some crickets this morning. They're not usually as quick to go hunting as Norbert is, but maybe we can see her grab onto some crickets. There she goes. chomping away. There is a male in here as well. I see him in his little tank getting ready to go hunting. He's hanging out in this nice moist box we have for him. Fat-tailed geckos are from the scrublands of West Africa, but they like to find moist little hideaways. So we've created one here for our geckos. And finally, we have right next door to them our crested geckos. I see some of you have bearded dragons at home. That's awesome. We'd love to see pictures if you want to share. I've been taking lots of pictures of my pets these days. So here is a crested gecko. These ones typically don't hunt immediately, but I am gonna sprinkle some crickets into their enclosure. I also earlier prepared for them a smoothie because our crested geckos like to eat fruit as well as insects. They're pretty awesome omnivores. Here's the male burying himself in the leaves. There's a cricket right by his head. But he's not too interested in hunting right now. They like to do that at dawn and dusk. All right. So those, oh, he might have gotten it. Those are our Herptile feedings for today. Feel free to ask any additional questions. I'll stay on for a second. You can also post any questions to our Facebook page or email info@sciencecenter.org, and we will get back to you, especially if you had a question that I didn't know how to answer today.
I think, Rozzy, you have a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Rozzy.
I can't remember what I was gonna say, but it might come back to me later.
Okay, we'll come back to you later. Just raise your hand. Arlo, you have a question though. Go ahead.
What do they like? What do they do when they sleep?
It's a lot like when we sleep, Barlow. We get pretty still. I mean, they don't get in bed or anything. And actually, some of our geckos like to sleep hanging onto the sides of the glass, which is pretty funny. And a lot of our reptiles like to sleep during the day and hunt at night when it's cooler.
Yeah, boy, come.
Sorry?
Yeah, boy, come.
I think Arlo was talking to someone off screen. I'm gonna mute you, Arlo.
Oh, okay. I'm showing you our green tree pythons right now because also in this tank we do have a Tokay Gecko. He's really hard to see at the moment, but I am gonna put some crickets in for him to hunt, and I'll try to get you a view of him without getting bitten by a snake. I don't think that's gonna happen. You'll have to come back to see our Tokay Gecko. He's very hidden.
We're seeing lots of people holding up their dogs and cats right now. For animals. That's
awesome. This is my dog assistant, Io. He is not a snake, but these guys are snakes. These are our green tree pythons. And we're really excited because we think we might get some eggs out of these snakes later this year. We're hoping that that green tree female, the larger of the two, is going through vitellogenesis. Oh, hello, cats. scrolling through so I can see everyone's awesome pets.
My dog rolled up.
Your dog got held up. I saw that.
Yeah, it's really good to have some animal friends at this time, I think. I've definitely been enjoying spending time with the animals at the Science Center and with my animals at home. So, tomorrow, we will have another live video at 10:30. We will be doing animal poses yoga with one of our awesome Science Center volunteers. So if you want to stretch out a little bit, be a little silly, and get moving, I encourage you to join us tomorrow. You can use a yoga mat if you have one, but you can also just set up on the rug or the floor or outside if it's really nice.
She can't see because she's.
I think we have one more question from Kason and Camden before we go.
Good.
Where's your bed?
Where's the gecko's bed?
Yeah.
Where's the gecko's bed?
Where's the gecko's bed?
The gecko's bed, so the geckos don't have a specific bed spot, but if you look at their tank, I'm gonna go take a look at the Crested Gecko tank again. You'll notice there are lots of different areas for them to hang out. So it's really important when you have animals in captivity to provide them with habitats that have lots of spots to hang out and hide and lots of diversity and temperature, so they're able to choose the spot that's most comfortable for them. A lot of times I find a gecko sleeping in this plant pot. We also have a little house, and there's one in there right now that might hang out. You can also see there's a gecko there under the bark and hanging onto the glass.
Okay.
All right, everyone. I am going to log off now. Thank you all so much for coming, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.